Hi, this is Dr. Tom Moorcroft. Welcome to Full Cup Life, the podcast that goes behind the science of living well to exposing the truths and tactics to savor all that your journey to greater success has to offer to you every sip of the way. So everyone, welcome. This is my buddy, Tyler Lewis. We wanted to get together. She is from Rogue Recovery, totally a rogue health and wellness expert, one who is getting kids better from autism and supporting their parents and the community at large. And it's just always such a blessing to have her here. We totally vibe out all the time, so we're going to kind of be a little informal and have a good time. So welcome, welcome. And what about Banff behind you, which is so cool? What's it do for you?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, my nickname in high school was Bamf, B-A-M-F. It was on my soccer jersey, and somebody sent me this picture of Banff National Park in Canada, and they were like, they need to rename it so that it's Banff, and this is your spot. And ever since then, I've been really attached to it.
Nice. It's so good. I love Banff. I went up there I lectured one time for an ILADS conference up there, and it was just like, it blew my mind how beautiful it is.
You know? I love it. I can't wait to get up there.
Oh, so you haven't been yet?
I haven't. This just happened like a couple months ago that someone sent it to me, and now I get coated with it everywhere. I see it everywhere now.
So awesome. Well, you know, it is. It's like, it's a great place. And, you know, the thing, it dovetails to what we're talking about so much today, because really the idea for everyone who's in the group and listening is, you know, we talk about full cup life. You know, I heard this phrase, like, you know, it's almost like how your nickname came about, right, Tyler? It was like, somebody was like, everybody's like, oh, or, you know, the glass half empty, the glass half full. And then and I was like, well, I don't like either one of those options. You know, I just want, there's enough abundance to go around for all of us. And so, and then a friend of mine goes, what about full cup life? And I was like, ooh, it kind of has a nice ring. So that's really what I wanted to talk about, because I know that you are one of these people who just go full on with creating possibility for kids healing. So I really wanted to kind of dive into that and have you share sort of your approach to, you know, autism and health in general and just life, because you're super awesome.
Aw, thanks, friend. Yeah, so I guess I would say that really what it was for me is just recognizing that we have this great population of kids in autism that can and do get better. And we started to recognize that there is hope for healing in autism, which is something that, you know, as any parent that has a child affected, one of the first things they do is they tell you that there's nothing you can do. Here's your diagnosis. This is forever. And then basically, you know, have a great day, go home and figure out your life. And I think that that's one of the most horrible and just worst messages that we can leave a family with as they're walking out the door, because it creates this dialogue in their mind that there is no hope, and they're hope stealers. This is what is happening in our community. And so then it becomes challenging for practitioners like myself and so many in our community of integrative health and wellness that recognize that there's a lot that we can do, because before we can even begin to help the child address their body with the actual, you know, comorbid medical conditions that are occurring in autism, we have to address the mindset of the parents that were told that there was nothing that could be done. And so that's really how Rogue was born, was to go back and not only set the stage that, yes, there is so much options out there, so much hope, and we had to become hope dealers basically, and like really create that mindset and that dialogue before we could even begin to share that health and wellness information.
Yeah, I love it. That the hope dealer thing, just like, it's like, it's what I'm all about. Because I think that, like,
Yes.
My experience was, I almost, you know, it's funny, and I would love to get your take on this, because I feel like so much of it's the story that we're told, either, like you said, by the practitioner, but also by the community. And when I first had Lyme and babesiosis, I literally didn't know what was wrong with me. So there was no label. You know, I mean, obviously they started out with like depression and you know, bipolar and ADHD and chronic fatigue. And you're like, you're all over the place. I'm like, none of these even make sense in the same sentence. So like, they're not it. But there was no cause. And I feel like autism is more of like this broad spectrum of possibilities that are being expressed as the child in front of us. What's the story though, like that we hear from the community? How does that impact our kids and their parents?
Well, I think that, I do want to touch on what you were talking about with having Lyme and babesiosis, but not having a label. We tend to cling to our labels desperately because it's the attempt for the brain to create organization out of chaos. And so that label really just becomes something that we need in order to understand what we are facing in this situation. Unfortunately, what we're seeing in the autism community is that this is just one word that now all of a sudden represents multifactorial conditions. We're talking Asperger's, which is not the same as autism, all the way now over into PANS and these other, unknown chronic conditions that our children are being faced with. And so we slap this label on it, and then we somehow expect these families to co-integrate together with all of these different challenges. Like any one child that you meet is not the same as any other. And meeting a child that's affected by PANS versus classic autism versus Asperger's, they're all entirely different in the way they present and their medical challenges. And so it actually creates this situation, believe it or not, with further division in the community among families because they have different needs, but they're all being treated the same with the same aspect of like, please just accept this and let's go celebrate it and light it up blue. And meanwhile, parents are literally watching their children. Some are incredibly gifted and highly capable to go out into the world and interface and get jobs, and they're very communicative and they have this awesome opportunities in front of them. And then on the other side, you have children that are deeply affected with chronic medical illness such as PANS that is robbing them of neurological function and cognitive performance. And these families are fighting just to get recognized and have resources. And so it comes to the table as this great challenge of how do we meet these families where they are and support them with what they need, not only medically, but also the trauma and the energetic exchange that occurs when you have a child that is deeply medically affected and not getting what they need.
So that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff. I mean, that's like power packed, right? Boom. So here's the thing, Tyler. Like one of the things that it reminds me of is I was telling us. I've told this story to before, but there's this group of folks I hung out with and we meditated. We had the same teacher, but we'd all kind of meet with him twice a year, maybe 3 times a year. We'd all come from all over the globe. And I remember in one of the little discussion forums, as one guy starts talking about, like I was at this point where stuff was happening, I was consistently doing it. Then this other guy starts talking about how he had this experience of the universe in his throat. And I was like, whoa, like, wow, yes. I want it, right? And so automatically I was like, oh, I want what he has. I'm like, wait a minute, that wasn't even my dream. I wasn't trying to get the universe in my throat. Like, I don't even know what that means. Like, and I just automatically, like my squirrel brain was like, woo, let's go to there. And it just reminded me that so many times we look outside to what other people are experiencing for several reasons. One, because they might have, the grass might be greener over there, but also to, more importantly in medicine, to kind of find a place to figure out what, like you were saying, organizing the chaos. So how do we go about, because to me, it's like, I feel like if you are the PANS kid versus the more, autistic kid, it's pretty different. And you could be really beat up by looking at one versus the other. How do you keep people, how do you work with people to get them to understand the uniqueness of their child at the same time as showing them, hey, this is sort of your lane a little bit, right? So there's like a theme in your life where you could learn from being in this with these people, but let's not get wrapped into it. Like, how do you make that happen on the ground?
Well, I love that we're talking about this because this is really the success of all the programs that we do in Rogue. So whether it's working with me one-on-one in clinical, whether it's purchasing the autism map or doing like an intensive wellness program with us, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. It starts with coming back to center. What does it mean to come back to center? It means to go within yourself and really take a look at what's going on with you first, because everything begins with one, the power of one, which is us. It's really, and I coach parents to recognize that everything that they're going to do for their children starts with them. It starts with their own recognition of their situation as a mother or a father, whoever it is. Then it branches out as them as a parent, and then it branches out as them as a family unit. But everything starts inside our own internal core of beliefs and who we are and how we're addressing our own healing. And when we start to go inward, it automatically creates this dynamic where it shuts off the external, and the external no longer becomes a factor, and it shouldn't be a factor, because whatever's going on with any other child in the community or in the world, any other family, any other circumstance has no effect on us whatsoever. We only have the power to affect ourselves and those closest to us in our family dynamic. And so when we begin to cut off that external, it really does this incredible thing where you think that it's like this contraction and that your world is getting smaller. But what it's actually doing is creating a huge expanse of energy that's now available to be given to yourself for your own healing, and then to your child and to other family members, because you are no longer sending energy to any other situation or circumstance around you.
Right? I mean, you know what I love? This really just reminds me what you just said. This is so simple. I think that coming home and returning to center, that I think we overlook, we overlook how powerful this really is, right? And this is one of those things where it's like when you look at what Carnegie said and Bob Proctor and all these great thinkers throughout history. Like, it's interesting, I hear this quote a lot from Bob Proctor, and he talks about like all the great leaders across the planet and throughout time have disagreed on absolutely every one thing except this one. And that one idea is that you become what you think about. The thing that we focus on is what we bring about. And, you know, Carnegie talked about how, you know, it's like whatever we put our mind on and we set our mind and focus on will rapidly clothe itself in the most convenient form. And it's positive or negative, right? So if you're focusing on the negative, you're going to be getting more of that as an inertia. And if you focus on the positive, you're going to be starting to get more of that as the inertia. When you come into yourself and you start to look at your center, you're going to start to get more of that through inertia, right? So like, I think when we talk about this a lot, we expect like, boom, like this, you know, miracle occurred, lightning bolt, you know, overnight I'm enlightened or my health has changed. But it's that, where's your inertia going? What are you creating that powerful wave towards?
Yeah, I mean, I love this because, you know, we talk about where focus goes, energy flows. And that really is a grand principle of the universe that all of us could stand to work on more. Even the most enlightened yogis in the world all continue to have this practice. It's not a one and done, and it's not an instant process. So, you know, for those parents out there in a community with a child that's affected by whatever it is, whether it's an autism spectrum or any kind of other chronic condition, if we put our energy towards things that are not necessarily serving us, then our focus, then our energy goes towards that also. But it really detracts from the work that needs to be done within ourselves. And it's not expected that parents are going to grasp this overnight, because we are essentially getting the messaging that, you know, we need to read 1 million studies a day. We need to do 52 biomed interventions by the end of the year, or our kid's never going to get better. You know, we get this messaging out there that tells us to divide our focus and put it in these other areas. And I hope if there's one thing that I do before I leave this plane, it's that I can be a part of refocusing that attention into ourselves and that healing, and letting go of the concept that we have to do 1 million things, all the things, until we're so depleted that we don't have anything left to offer ourselves and our children.
Right. And wow, you know, it's so funny. It's like I'm taking notes, because it's like the depleted thing is something I really want to talk about. the thing I don't want to forget though, is one of the questions that I get a lot, and I also just kind of the way people respond to some of my recommendations, you kind of get the sense that they feel like if they focus on, say, like if you're a parent of an autistic kid, if they focus on themselves first, they're stealing from what they can focus on their child. Or if they're focusing on their mindset and putting themselves first, they're like emotionally, mentally, they're not actually doing enough physical for themselves. So how do you kind of address that?
I will be myself, and I'm going to be really honest. The greatest
What I love about you.
lie, yes, the greatest lie we were ever sold as parents, doesn't matter what type of parent you are, is that you had to sacrifice your essence and your being in order to give everything that you have to your children, and that without doing that, you wouldn't be raising the most amazing child possible. That is the greatest lie ever sold. The reality is that energy flows from us through the ones we love, and it can only come back to us and continue to renew the cycle and replenish what it is that we need when we open up and give. Giving is the ultimate process. If it was anyone else in your world, you would give them everything, but we forget to give to ourselves, and that completes the chain. Think about it as an ever-present loop. And so here you are, you're giving all these things out, and the loop is trying to come back around and give back to you, and it can't because you've blocked it. And so what you've done is, what we've done, because I've done this, I've lived this, is we've essentially cut off that cycle of reciprocity and infinite resource and abundance for energy, prosperity, healing, love. All of those things are eternal if we allow the cycle to continue.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head with, like, a lot of people are familiar with The Secret, right? And like the law of attraction. And the thing that people don't, one of the things that's so important with the law of attraction, at least the way I visualize it, is the completion of the loop. You are inspired. You are divinely inspired to love yourself, to love your child, to love your health. And it's in you. And if you let it out, then the universe is like, oh, boom, let's bring that right back. And the more but I can't give it out of me if it's not in me to begin with. So I can't give health and love to my child or to my spouse unless it's in me first.
No, absolutely. And here's the thing. Now let's take it back to a level of science. Although all of this that we're talking about is science. But let's take it back to a place where we talk about this biochemical stuff that's going on in the body. When we were pregnant as mothers, we were told that we had to take our prenatal vitamins, we had to do our nutritional support, because if we didn't, we wouldn't have enough to give to the baby. We had to do all of those things so that the baby would have what the baby needed. So we need to start looking at that also from an energetic perspective and a self-care perspective. If we do not take care of ourselves and give to ourselves first, we don't have enough to give to others. It's really so basic and simple, and yet it gets lost because of all this other external programming that, again, we need to cut off and cut out so that we come back to center and reconnect to our innate instincts of self-preservation so that we can preserve the pack.
So nice. I love it. Part of what you were talking about earlier too, it involves trauma.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that immediately just like, the thing that really comes up for me is like, hey, people like will have an experience where they feel like they gave too much to themselves, and then that led to some external other circumstance, or they tried a certain thing and it didn't work, or vice versa. I tried a bunch of stuff, it didn't work. Then I found one thing that worked, and now they're almost like so traumatized by the fact that it took 3 years to get to the thing that worked, that now everybody around them needs to do the same thing. And it's like, and then trauma's in so many different ways. So how do you see it coming up sort of for folks as they're trying to balance this, caring for their child, caring for themselves, and that kind of stuff?
Well, trauma is such a beast, and it's also such a blessing. And I know that's hard to hear for a lot of people, but trauma happens. It will always happen in human history and continue to do so for all of eternal time, because it's really a catalyst that allows us to learn specific things and grow into greater beings. So, without the bad, it's really hard to appreciate the good, essentially. But the thing is that trauma is only a blessing when we take the reins and we learn how to look at it and sit with it, process it, and release it. And so many of us in this community specifically, or anybody that's dealing with a chronic condition, we get that initial trauma, the onset of this is happening to me or this is happening to my child. And then somehow along the way, through lots of different factors, we forget to finish the process of healing, and we get stuck in what's called a trauma loop. And when we get stuck there, we start to react from that place of trauma instead of being able to really facilitate healing that trauma and going forward through it and assisting others as we're meant to on the journey. And so I see a lot of families, and myself included, I did this for many years with my own son. I see a lot of families just getting stuck in that, and they become anxious and they get into that locked stress response. And then they get this analysis paralysis. And like what you talked about, we get stuck in this pattern in ourselves that one thing for one person is the one thing for all people. Right? And so then we go out into the community and we start pushing these messages of all whatever it is that we believe, not recognizing that we're actually operating from a trauma space. And how you can tell, in my opinion, if you're operating from trauma is if you are forcing anything on someone else, whether it's a belief system or protocol, or, oh, you have to do this or your child won't get better, or if you don't do this, they could get worse, or whatever that is. If you're pushing something onto someone, you're operating from trauma. If you are sharing information and allowing them to determine and discern for themselves if it's something that may resonate for their specific journey, you're operating from a place of healing. And they're two very different and distinct places to be.
Right. I'm so glad you touched on that, because as soon as you said that, I was like, well, what about, like, you and I both share our passion and for healing. We've both had our personal and family experiences, and we want to share them with other people. And I really like how you said, like, the way you really, to me, is I'm looking, is it a contractive feeling, or another way to say it is like you were saying, the pushing. If I'm pushing this onto somebody else because they have to listen to me, because if they don't, then it comes back, well, they're not listening to me or whatever. But when we're sharing it and it's an expansive, this is an opportunity. This is a thing that worked for me. Will it work for you? Yes. I want you to have this from my heart because it helped here, and I want it to help you. One of the interesting things, Tyler, that came up for me when you're talking is with trauma. There's people like, and I'll use an example. Veterans. I think that this is not black and white, everybody. I totally get this. There's a lot of gray in here, but generally speaking, there are people who are in traumatic experiences, like, they or a friend of theirs had a part or all of them blown up, say, or they were in a firefight. Yes. Then there's other people who were in a situation that was uncomfortable. Maybe they did some service, and now they come back and they're in a completely unfamiliar situation. So, and I feel like we label a lot of both of these things trauma, where one might be like medically defined PTSD, whereas the other is just like they haven't been able to make the re-entry or the shift to the new reality of their life. So like PANS is an example. Like, you can have a PANS kid who from one day to the next is completely different. And that's a complete shift in how your lifestyle is. And maybe you have to do some supplements and are doing okay. And then you can have a PANS kid who shifts and they're like beating on you. There's some real significant major problems. And how do we separate like actual trauma, say, from like perceived trauma? Because like I have a lot of people like they're worried about a Herxheimer reaction and they're creating it before it even happens.
Oh, I love that we're talking about this, because this is such a sensitive area, right? Because trauma is...
Let's just go there.
Let's do it. No, I want to do this because you know what? Here's the thing. Everyone's we start to get locked in a place where we compare traumas. We have this human nature to be comparative. And so all of a sudden, again, this divisive energy comes in and says, well, you don't know my experience and you can't talk to that and you can't judge me. And oh, I'm sorry. All you have to do is, your child won't get on the school bus in the morning. Well, that's really rough because I was cleaning up crap off my walls for 2 hours. But you know what? Here's the thing. I really hope that everybody hears us in this message today. Trauma is trauma is trauma. However one person perceives it is not for another person to say or determine their experience. If a child not getting on the school bus is creating an entire cascade of issues that you haven't stepped into and experienced, it's absolutely not acceptable for us to then turn around and say that, this parent that's over here cleaning feces off the wall has it harder or less hard. We can't play that game. This game will create a lock, a barrier to your own healing faster than anything else that I've seen. And you want to ask me how I know that? Because I've done that. Because I've done that. I've played that game where I was the victim. It's that victim mentality that we call in because it's a protection mechanism. And you know what it is, Tom? It's an unmet need. Trauma is an unmet need to whatever degree that is. And there is obviously a spectrum of trauma. So
I love that you said that. I'll just interject for one quick second the need, it's the individual response. So what I was trying to break out is there are different needs and we define them differently. And I feel like when you start talking, I was like, oh my God, like I just sounded like a jerk there because I separate it. No, but what I mean is I love the conversation piece because what we need to understand is real or perceived, and whatever your experience is real. However, my point is the treatment that we can offer you or the assistance or the love we can give you, well, the love, I guess, should be the same, but it's directed maybe in a different area.
No, I totally agree with you.
To meet that need.
I do agree with you. And this is what I want to wrap into and I'll finish that part up. It's an unmet need that's happening. And sometimes that need is something that is a much simpler solve than the other person's need. We have needs that vary in complexity and the amount of energy that we need to put towards them to solve the challenge that unravels the trauma. So I don't want people comparing because that's not okay and that's an energetic block. But when you talk about a soldier that, as you said, comes home and has lost all 4 of their limbs, their need becomes different than a soldier that experienced going through combat and comes home intact, but also has their own set of challenges. So this is where we get caught up in this whole concept that unity somehow means that we have to be the same. Unity is not mutually exclusive to uniqueness. They are not mutually exclusive. So we can absolutely be unique as our own individual journey and our journey as a family, and yet still have unity among ourselves as parents who understand what it means to have a need and experience some level of trauma, however we perceive it, as another family. And this is kind of that sort of exchange that I really think needs to be improved upon vastly in the community.
Well, it's interesting because as you're talking about this understanding that each person is unique and they all have their unique need, and whether we use the word challenge with it or not, and again, that could be an acknowledgement, it could be a judgment, but at the same time, if we say you are unique and you have needs, I'm just like, wow, this is like marriage counseling. And then I'm like, wow, this is kind of like race relations. I mean, I've talked recently about all the stuff that's been going on, the way that people of color are treated is completely wrong. However, I will also add that when I hear people talk about what their needs are, within their needs, I go, wow, there's an aspect of your needs that's very similar to my needs. And there's a human connection. And that's what really drives me is like, I want to say that we all sort of have similar sort of human, we have there's sort of a piece of us that's similar. We have this human connectedness. And we all have this desire to to raise up. And then on the other side of it, though, we also have our own unique needs. And I think that like in the autism community, if you fit sort of the more standard definition, if that's even a thing, you know,
Right.
right? Sometimes it's hard because there's so much, you know, there is a lot of variety. But I mean, but if you fit in that, generally speaking, there's going to be a group experience, and then there's going to be an individual experience. And I feel similarly about races. Like when I hear people of color having an experience, I'm like, wow, I can resonate with that as a human being. But what I don't resonate with or well, I shouldn't say don't resonate. I resonate with the understanding, but I don't personally have an experience of, is what it's like to be a Black man or a Black woman and feel that, right? And there's a uniqueness in their experience that because I'm in a different group, I don't have. And I feel the same way for a lot of the medical conditions.
I fully agree with you. And here's the thing. This is where I'm going to really call in the energy of personal responsibility. We have an obligation to ourselves to become educated and empowered about what is going on within ourselves and within our children, and really start to take a look at where we can do the work. It doesn't mean that there wasn't an egregious situation that happened against us. My child was medically harmed, and that's the reality of our situation. But that doesn't mean that I don't have personal responsibility to now go forward and solve this challenge and care for my child and do the work. And that's how I view it. It means that became my personal responsibility. And so this is where I really love these conversations, because, you know, and that's what it means to be a parent. That just is what it means to be a parent, is that this is always going to be our mission, is to, you know, have that caregiving responsibility for our child, no matter how old they are or how recovered they are. It's just what you do as a caregiver. And what I love about that is when you think about that, if you are empowered and you have that personal responsibility and you become educated and aware of what you can do, guess what that does, Tom? It liberates you. You become free. You are not reliant on anybody to show up for you and ride in on a white horse, because you are the hero. You are the hero of your child's story and your own story. And there is no greater place of empowerment and true just self-love and amazing resonance with the universe than when you can step into that power and do what it is that you need to do. And it's really incredible. I don't know how much we want to dive into that, but it's amazing.
I'm all for the deep dive, because as you're talking, I'm just like, it reminds me, like, the universe is not going to put a desire in your heart unless you have the ability to achieve it, right?
Yes.
So if you're a parent who's like, oh my God, I really want to take care of my child, you have the capability. If you're someone who believes that race relations must change, you have the capability to do your part. Like, we all have that power. It's not playing it in our mind and then in our heart unless we have the ability to do it. The part where we fall apart sometimes in achieving those goals is what you were saying, is that personal responsibility. It's the persistence. It's the doing the action every day.
Yes.
Right? Because it's like you look online now, it's like everybody's going to online. Everybody, what's the quickest funnel? What's the best way to build this thing and build that thing? And I'm like, well, the best way to do any of those things is to start and then to keep doing it. And how do we heal our children or heal ourselves? Well, we start and then we keep taking the steps. And as we take the next step, we just revise every moment, and we savor the good. We learn from what might not have gone right. And then to me, it's like, and I would like you to see what you have to say, Tyler, is one of the most important things is being able to, I think, is being able to make a clear decision, make the right decision. Because if I ask people to make decisions, a lot of times they're just like, you brought up analysis by paralysis, right? Or paralysis.
Yes.
That's funny.
Yes.
Paralysis by analysis. But anyway, the idea being, like, we're worried about making the wrong decision, right? And to me, it's like we have to make when we are in the present and when we are centered and we are coming from our heart and we are open to this guidance and walking the walk, we make better decisions than if we're in the fear-based scarcity model. So when we have the universal abundance versus the scarcity, abundance, we bring in, we make better decisions. At least that's what I think. So I don't, what's your take on that whole rabbit hole?
No, absolutely. It's absolutely true. And it's, again, it is a universal principle that the more that we sit in a countenance of fear or anxiety or doubt or worry, we do block our ability to have discernment. Discernment is something that requires trust, faith, love, and hope. Those things exist in opposition of fear for a reason, because they can't exist in the same space at the same time. So when you align yourself with trust, faith, hope, and love, you essentially give yourself permission to do what I call a trust fall with the universe. You go ahead and you don't know what's going to happen, but you let go. You let go of that fear and that anxiety, and you just say, okay, I'm handing it over. And then all of a sudden, we start to see these incredible miracles. And I've seen it over and over and over again. I've lived it myself with my son, having trusted what I called it the Hail Mary. It was like this final intervention that we were going to do after we gave up, after we quit trying to help him get better. And I gave up my hope and my faith. And I called in one last Hail Mary. And you know what that was? It was the trust fall with the universe. And now my son's life is forever going to be better, and it highly impacted healing because I allowed myself to let go and I set no expectation. When you create the expectation and you still have that doubt and that fear, you're blocking it. And that's just the reality of it.
I think you have to create like an openness for it to happen. And so I was right as you said expectation, I'm like, oh, what a great time to talk about expectations versus goals.
Yes.
Because those I'll just let you take it. Because everyone knows I'll have an opinion that I'll share in a moment.
Okay. Well, everyone says, okay, there's like these two thoughts, right? That people say, don't set an expectation, you'll never get disappointed. I highly disagree with that. I love expectations, because expectations for me is something that if I'm setting that expectation out there, it's because I believe that it's possible. And so, but here's the thing, expectation can only meet you as far as the goal that you've set. Like, what are you expecting? Do you know? Do you have a goal? You have to create this goal in order to create the expectation. And it's sort of like kind of building this roadmap for you for how to get the life that you want, but you have to craft it based on your goals. And that's how I see it.
Yeah. It's for me, when I set a goal, it creates space because all the extraneous baloney just falls aside.
Falls away.
And then when I have a goal too, and I focus on it, when I savor the things that are coming in, like all the little nuances of healing, because I feel like so many times, and I will admit, as a provider, I get frustrated at times, and I've realized that that's my paradigm. So I'm working on that one. But when people are like, I was doing really well for 3 weeks, but I haven't been feeling well for the last 2 days. And I'm like, but so the sky has fallen down now? I'm like, so for me, yes, both are true. And you had 3 great weeks, or you had 3 great days, or you had 3 great minutes. Like, savor those. And this is the part where, like, I think it's really interesting to like take the highs. When we're manifesting health, the idea is when it starts to come, don't be surprised. Don't be like, oh my God, it's amazing. Like, do that for a moment, have a party, but then expect, love it and savor it, but then expect it.
Lock it in,
anchor it, right? It's like NLP, let's anchor it. But then go, hey, you know what? This happens. I expect this to happen all the time. So the next time it comes, lock it in, savor it, love it, but don't make it like unexpected. And when bad things happen, they go, oh, I knew that was going to happen, as if it were expected. You just say, oh, it's there. Right? Don't lock it. Because I feel like we do it the opposite way. We lock in some of the negative stuff because it's just so easy to do because of our evolution.
Unhealed trauma. Because of our unhealed trauma.
Yes. Wait, why is that again? Yeah, and it's like, so how do you go about in your work, you know, because we talked about the trauma piece, but how are you locking in or anchoring the good pieces? Because I will admit, and you know too, there are
Yeah.
times where it's sparse, right? The good stuff is sparse at times until we start to look for it, and you need to make that crack. But so how do you lock it in?
Yeah, you know, it's something that we do have to work on, and we have to talk about this piece is, you know, again, setting those expectations, but also having room for flexibility, because that's really important, because everything is dynamic, everything flows. Healing is not static and it's not linear. And so as we begin to accept that this journey is going to have ebb and flow, we begin to create space for that to occur without losing that hope and that faith and that trust. We can absolutely make space for the days when, you know, oh, you had 3 great weeks, but then you had those 2 bad days. If you make space for that and you allow for it, then what it does is it frees up the good days to come back in. And so we have to talk about that on these journeys, especially with our parents, because they do get locked in that trauma of, oh my gosh, we were heading up and now we're heading back down, and this is going to be forever. And oh my gosh, he's tanking, and what's happening? And I see it over and over and over. And it's something that if we can begin to reframe the mind to hold on to what it means to have those good days. And so what I mean by that is, you know, this really comes into play with gratitude. We do a lot of work around gratitude and saying, oh my gosh, wow, okay, so here's what's really cool about that. Yeah, we have 2 bad days, but that's how you distinguish the good days. Now you're understanding that we have this place that we can go to. We've been there before, so we know how to get there. And now we know what it really feels like when we're not feeling good. And it gives us that appreciation for those good days. It's sort of like I talked about, when you can't appreciate the good without experiencing the bad, as we call it, though I
Right.
don't believe in good and bad. I really don't.
Contrast.
It's contrast, and everything teaches us. Those bad days were probably a day where the body was really working harder. There's a lot of cellular mechanisms going on. Maybe the mitochondria was doing an output at a higher level and it was feeling a little bit of fatigue. All of those things are actually for our higher benefit and our higher healing,
And
as
maybe
long as
we're
we
actually
recognize it.
detoxifying.
Correct. And so those bad days are actually beautiful miracle blessings of healing that our body is performing when we just get the hell out of the way. And when we've learned to recognize it and appreciate it and then have gratitude for it, guess what keeps coming back around? All those good healing experiences that we need to get to the goal.
And it's interesting because I was just thinking, like, I talk to people about money this way too, because a lot of people have money trauma.
Yeah, sure.
and worthiness trauma and whatever it is. But it's a matter of, right? We're all human beings. And
yes.
what's interesting to me is that you can change this right now. Like, and I tell a story of where, you know, I was just kind of, you know, trying to bring in multiple sources of income and diversify a little bit and just feel more abundance. You know, nothing crazy, although maybe it depends on who's reading my goal sheet. But I wanted to just be able to create more impact on the world. I wanted to be able to do more from where I'm at, right? And I wanted to kind of amplify Tom, like almost like cloning, but like just like choose where to do it. And then so I realized I just got little bits of money came trickling in here and there. And after like 2 days in a row, when I was thinking about it, I realized like a couple months earlier, I got like $8 for something, right? And I was like, why am I even doing this? It was $8, right? And then that $8, I was like, oh my God, I just told $8 that I don't want it.
Right. You failed the test, my friend.
I did. And so what I did, Tyler, this is what I did. I went back and I said, $8, I am so sorry that I didn't recognize how much of a blessing you were. Please come into my life. And so this kept happening and I got more and more. And then a big opportunity to not only generate some income, but to then create a massive leap in my impact on teachings in chronic Lyme disease and helping children and adults not have to suffer with this came because I said, I'm sorry. So when I bring this back to health, guys, look at what's going on on any particular day, or if you have a habitual pattern, the patterns are blessings. The loop that keeps running, the thing that comes up the most, it's obvious. It's like, this is a place where we need to do the work. So now if you go back and you go, hey, when I have these Herxheimer reactions, when I have this detoxification reaction, when I have the day where my body needs me to rest more because it's actually healing, rather than going, damn it, I'm not getting better, or damn it, I'm having another flare, go back in your mind a little bit and go, hey, you know what? I'm so sorry that I didn't recognize the blessing of my body, because we all want our bodies to work better, right? Higher level. They were. Part of higher level is rest. So when our body asks us for that, go back in the past and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. I invite you into my present to be part of this abundance of healing that my body's doing, and it'll change.
Thank you for being the messenger that I needed to slow down a little bit so I can give you what you need.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I love about this too is what you just touched on. What if I told you, and everyone watching, and you know this because you're the one teaching me, but what if I told you guys that mastering very simple principles about the energy and the exchange and the way that everything works in the universe not only has the capability to unlock your health and wellness, but also your finances and your personal relationships and every other situation that you will face as a human being having a human experience on this planet, gives you the power to really navigate those in a way that these challenges are no longer challenges, right? They're just beautiful, awesome exchanges that can become abundant in whatever that form of abundance is for you. And that's what I love about this.
You know, the other part about that would just like, you know, this whole conversation is like, you know, hair standing up on my arms and back. It's just so, especially this last bit, because it really is the part that's important to me, because it's like, it's letting out what's inside. But I also think we need to look at this abundance piece you just talked about and recognize that health abundance does not exist in that vacuum, right? The abundance is a universal principle. So I tell this story, like I originally was able to manifest health abundance after, you know, years of illness, 8+ years of not knowing what's going on. I manifested abundance of health. I never applied that. Well, up until a point in the, you know, not too distant past, I didn't apply that to the rest of my life. So I was like, it was only good enough for me to have health abundance, but not other abundance.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for talking about that, because that's what I did with Donovan. I was able to manifest health abundance for him, but I wasn't doing it for myself. And then there was all these other blocks and challenges that I had in my life. And somehow I had accepted this limiting belief, this limiting belief that I could only do that for him and for other people, but not for myself. And I'll never, you know, be able to have enough to pay my bills doing this, but it's okay as long as everybody heals. And there was all these dialogues that were just really blocking my ability to recognize that abundance is infinite for everybody. When you understand the principles of it, there is no amount there is no amount. It's infinite resources for everybody. And I get so excited that I kind of like my brain gets ahead of my mouth. But the reality of it is like, I want everyone to know about this. I know you do too. And I feel like if we could just continue to share this information in how it's working in our own lives, then everyone gets to access that. And you talked about Carnegie in the beginning of this. And I have to tell you, he's so inspirational to me. I had this belief that Carnegie was somehow like this old crony that had all this money and he was greedy and he didn't care about people. And you know what? It turns out that was so inaccurate. He really had this concept of sharing the way that we can access abundance in our lives. And he wanted to do that for everybody. He wanted abundance principles to be shared in every single public high school and university and all colleges for everyone to learn. And he said, my greatest fear is that man's failure will be perceived as his own instead of us failing to educate that there's a better way. And that blew my mind. And I sat there and I thought, this is incredible. You know, we can and we must do better. We are the harbingers of change that are going to bring in this new concept so that people no longer have to suffer. And that is such a big responsibility, but here we are.
Yeah. Boom. I love it. That it's like, we just vibe on the same, resonate in the same level with all this. And I just pulled
Yeah.
up the quote that I was talking about earlier, just to make sure I get it just right, because there's so much potent power in the specificity in which he spoke. And so Carnegie said, any idea that is held in the mind, that is either emphasized, that is either emphasized, that is either feared or revered, will begin at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate form available. So the things
Yes.
that we are focusing on are starting to happen. But as you even said, like, maybe you're having an off day and this is mitochondrial rejuvenation day, right? So sometimes a lot of these things are happening below the surface in the invisible. We're building that foundation. We put
Yes.
a picture of radiant health out there for our child, radiant health out there for us. And then it's starting to molecularly happen, but we haven't seen it on the surface. So right as the going gets the toughest is usually right when that seed's about to sprout out of the ground. So keep pushing at that point, keep working. And, it's interesting. I just had you're just stimulating all these different, moments in my head, Tyler. Is one of the things is I'm always trying to get people to focus on their health first before their kids. And if your goal,
Yes.
even on paper, is your kid to be healthy, how the hell can you manifest health for your child if you can't manifest it first for yourself? If you are saying,
Yes.
oh, we're going to just, because if you're thinking health is limited, right? Because if you say it's for them, but not me, health is limited. Your
Yes.
kid can't, if your kid has health, you can't. You just said, I can't, and it's limited going back to what Carnegie said.
And that's what you anchored. You anchored in that you will not have health because there's only a limited amount, and you gave it to your child, instead of us changing our mindset that there is infinite amount of health and wellness around me and available to me. There's enough for everybody. I will start with me so that I can model this to my child. And I have to do this for my younger children now because I did it backwards for my older son. And the more I healed him, the more sick that I became. And I didn't understand it. And that's because I was depleting myself by giving everything to him and not taking any for myself. And that is an incorrect assumption. And I will not stop until every single mother and father out there that has a child that's affected takes the time to care for themselves so that they truly understand that the greatest and most powerful way to heal their child is by starting with them.
Yes, I love it.
It's that important.
It is. It is the most important. And one of the things I also wanted to talk about was, and give other people the opportunity to hear your experiences, because you're saying like Carnegie wants to teach this stuff everywhere. If anybody listening doesn't think that you want this to be taught absolutely everywhere, this mindset and abundance, I mean, and the infinite potential of healing within you and your children, I would think they've been sleeping through this. Because Tyler is on a mission, right? And I'm also on a mission to get the information out to people of how to make some of these quantum leaps so that they can focus on themselves. Because when you focus on yourself, especially as a parent or a spouse, you bring others along with you and you model it, and then you can bring them in. So I wanted to spend just a couple moments, because I mean, we're going to have to do part 2 of the energetics of healing for sure, and maybe 3 and 4. I mean, this is like this is a mini series, I think.
It's like it's the Tom and Tyler show, and it's like a weekly series at 8 p.m.
We
Eastern.
should do it. So one of the things that, one of my passions is to give people a roadmap to get this done. And so, the program that I use as the foundation is Thinking in the Results, which is Bob Proctor's program, which is great because it gives us that roadmap to create the opportunity for whatever your personal, your family, your health, and your business or financial goals may be. So it's a complete open canvas for people. And we've worked together, and I just wanted to kind of get, you know, some of your feedback. And so, you know, I tell people how cool things are and what it did to my life, but there are other people like yourself who've had an experience. I'd love for you to just share kind of what your experience has been, and we'll go from there.
Oh my gosh. You know, when people come on and they start talking about stuff, everyone uses the same sort of buzz term, and it's that they say life changing. But I really don't want to minimize the fact that what I've learned so far has been absolutely life changing. I have been working on a project, and any one of you in this group that knows me knows that I've been building the autism map for a very long time. This is a divinely inspired project, a huge labor of love. And it was something that I felt like was my life's mission work in the health and wellness community of autism, but I couldn't finish it. And I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know what was going on. And I kept blocking myself, and it was so defeating, and I almost gave up on it. And you can see that I'm getting emotional. And Tom stepped in and he said, man, you're such a powerhouse and you have all this light inside of you and all these amazing things, but you don't have a clue how to get there. You need a roadmap. And I was like, well, you know, it's kind of funny because I build maps. And so it was sort of like this synchronicity, this kismet. And I said, I'm in, because you know what? I don't have anything to lose at this point other than the fact that my dream is going down the drain. And I know I'm supposed to do this work. I know that God put me on this earth to do this work. So if this will help me, I'm in. And it's week 3 now. And I can tell you that every single fear and block that I had is leaving. And that freed up that space for that project. And where I couldn't get my recording done is now done. Not only that, I built extra.
One weekend, dude, right?
One weekend. Remember, I called and I was like, oh my God. I didn't want to be as dramatic, but no, I was very dramatic. And I was like, this is insane. This is insane. I can't believe what's happening. But I knew to expect it. But then when it happens, you just get so excited. So then the next weekend, you know, I had something that I needed to manifest. I had a goal and it was very important to me. And I built this program overnight with the help of my team members, and boom, there we go. Not only did we meet the goal, we blew it out of the water. And I thought, this is wild. This is what it is. This is what life is supposed to feel like. Finally, thank you, God. I've been waiting for all of this fire inside of me, this passion and this desire to serve and show up and help, for it to be freed so that I know exactly how to use my gifts. And that's what it was for me. It was just, I needed some help getting out of my own way so that I could live my divine purpose and my birthright, because we all have that. Every single one of us has that inside of us, and we just get lost along the way because for whatever reason, we don't have the map in our hand. So that's been my experience. And to say that I'm full of gratitude is just a really gross understatement.
Well, I'm always full of gratitude too. And thank you, because the thing, Tyler, is everyone sees this power in you. We know it's in you. We know. And like my frustration previously in knowing you is that you just weren't doing it all, right? And I'm sure people say that about me, but it's interesting. I remember Mary Morrissey told me, and I don't remember if it's just her quote or someone else's quote, but you can't see the picture from within the frame.
Yes.
Right. So many of us just need somebody outside looking in and saying, what about this? Because really all I do when we work together is we go through the work, but then we ask questions, and it's just like, it brings up an emotion in me. And then I ask a question and you're like, boom, off to the races. And that's the thing. It's about creating freedom for you. You know, it's not another challenge. It's allowing you to create that life that you've always dreamed of. And the part that I love about working with you is that you've included yourself and your kids in your life and in your dreams and goals, but you're also, because so many times it comes up, it's like, well, if I ask for this for me, what about the community? And like, oh, and if I ask for money, well, that's selfish because I should be doing it for the community. I'm like, no, if you have money, you could do more for your community. And like, and it's like, and you exponentially increase. And you know, it's not all about money or about health or about this. It's about balance and understanding, like the abundance can come in. It's there, right? If it's not, how can you give to your community something that's not good enough for you?
how can I possibly show up for others if I don't allow the abundance to come in for myself first? And, you know, the greatest thing that I ever heard, you said it to me, and it said, you know, what if I told you that your bank account was reflective of the amount of impact that you have in the world? And I thought about that and I was like, oh my God, you know, listen, there's room for everything. There's so many families out there that could really, really use a hand up. And our grant program ran dry this year. And we haven't really talked about it, but that happened. That grant program was primarily funded through me personally because I had a block about asking for things, and especially money. I had this whole guilt complex. That is gone. That has been cleared. And now, right now, we actually just were able to bring a family into our new program and sponsor them. And it wasn't a hardship at all. It was provided by the abundance that we received. And that means that that family that desperately needed it got it. And that was the lesson. And it's been so incredible and transformative and powerful and a million other things that I could say. But all I want to really finish up by saying is just that now that I recognize this, it really does take someone just holding out a hand and saying, hey, do you want to come on this journey with me? And it's always up to us to decide whether we want to do it or not, or if it's in alignment or not. But I will never regret that decision. And now I will spend the rest of my days holding out that hand for others so that they can understand this and build that life, because it's just been so incredible for me and my children and my whole team that I will never not be able to offer this to others. It's not a secret. It's out there for everybody, and I want them all to know about it.
Nice. I love it. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this today and having this conversation about abundance and health and, you know, breaking down some of these barriers. For everyone watching, you know, the thing we've been talking about all week and the program and the one that like we're so passionate about is thinking in the results. This is, you know, and when Tyler talks about or in week 3, that's actually 6.5 weeks in, because we're doing every week, every lesson of this 6 months, we're doing the 12 lessons over 2 weeks. We're diving really deep. This isn't, if you want superficial, this is not for you. If you want to talk about it and then quit, not for you. If you're someone who's quit before because you didn't have the accountability and you're ready to move forward and you want accountability from a group around you of like-minded individuals, from me, this is definitely for you. If you're like Tyler, who's somebody who wants to go out there and stop playing small, have a big idea, but then just play kind of small, Tyler is changing the face of the planet. Can you imagine, like every time I watch TV, autism, it's like the number of kids with autism. It's like 1 in 300, 1 in 200, 1 in 180, 1 in 1. It's staggering. We need people to stand up for kids with Lyme and babesiosis and PANS and PANDAS and autism. You need to, but we can't do that unless we're able to stand up for ourselves and we're able to believe that there's enough abundance for ourselves and that we can do it. When we get out there, that's the thing. It's you know, so many of us healthcare providers and parents, we put ourselves out there for other people and then we're drained. It doesn't have to be that way. Learn how to change it. And people have asked, what is the MAP? I need a roadmap. Well, MAP stands for My Action Plan. Well, I'll tell you what, my action plan is you take responsibility. It's the my. You take responsibility. You take action every single day and you get yourself a coach. You get yourself a group around you that holds you accountable. And you dive in and you do the work every single day. And some days you'll do a lot and some days you'll do a little, but you take action every day and you persist. And a plan. It's not that every little step is planned out for you, but you're crystal clear on what your goal is. And then you have people around you who know how to achieve goals. Don't surround yourself with a bunch of people and take advantage. Like we go to these Facebook groups that we get all this information from people who really, I mean, are they in any different place? If someone has completely healed, go talk to them. And then talk to their doctors. If you want to, you know, change the world, hang out with people who are changing the world in their own thing. If you want to heal your kid, hang out with kids who are healing or people who are healing their kids. Shit, hang out with your kids and just be a kid. That's one of the biggest things I learned. So that's the plan, right? The MAP is you take responsible action every single day and you work with people who know how to structure it so that, because like I'm not creating the MAP for Tyler. I'm creating a structure that's a springboard for her to do what she wants. And I'm there to show her that there is a how, and we can get strategies to get there. But unless we do the mindset work, Bob Proctor talks about this all the time. 96% of it is mindset, 4% is strategy. And some people argue the numbers are different. And I started to, and I will tell you, I think he's right. You need strategy, but you need so much more clarity of mindset. And that's what thinking in the results is all about.
I agree. It's one of the best things I've ever found. And I'm so excited to just keep taking the journey for myself and then for others. You know, it's all about that empowerment.
It's great. So for anybody listening, I've got the link in the show notes. I'll drop it in there to learn more. If anybody wants to jump on a call and really dive into how it's getting clear on your goals and do it, I'll put my calendar link in there too. Definitely jump on a call. Here's an opportunity, free of charge, to really get clear on your goals and see if working together really makes sense. But I mean, if you think about it, I always put it in these terms. A lot of people are like, wow, it's some money, right? Yeah. So you are investing money. And to me, the question is, it's not whether I, can afford, is can you not afford to invest in yourself and in your future? Because think about where you've been for the last 3-4 years. Is it really where you want to be? And if it is, great. But if it's not, likelihood is you've got a set point that we want to shift, and we want to increase that set point in your health, your wealth, your relationships, your personal life, so that we can, when I talk to you in 6 months or a year, you're like, boom, I'm on a completely new level. And if you're like Tyler, it'll happen in 2.5 weeks, and some of the other people I work with. But
that was wild. I couldn't believe it. I just want to say this and then I'll let you guys go. But if you're sitting there right now and you're saying to yourself, I don't have any money to offer, I didn't either. And that was the mindset that I showed up with. And I allowed myself to change it and focus. And I became solution oriented, and I found a way. And I did not expect it, but I'm telling you, miracles will happen when you decide that you're worthy of them and you believe that it's coming to you. It will happen. So I just wanted to leave you with that, because it wasn't like I was hanging out with an overly abundant bank account in that moment, but I did choose myself. And now I get to share this with you guys. And it's been really awesome.
Yeah, it blows my mind too, Tyler, because it's just like, I remember it was such a struggle to say, yes, there's payment plans and people can do that, because there is a reality of money in your pocket today and what's available in your card. I totally get that. But the thing was, you decided that you were worth it, and you had a dream that was worth it, and that the dream inside of you coming out was worth it. And we figured out a way to make it work with what you had. So we do what we have from where we are with what we have. And then it was like, 2.5 weeks later, you're like, oh, can I just pay that all off? Because the abundance is flowing.
Yes.
And then the thing that blew my mind was you got the project done. You blew it up. And that's what's important. It's really about the impact, and it's about, for me, your passion coming out. And that's really what I really want to help. And some people say, hey, look, you know what? It's not the right time. Stay in with Full Cup Life, participate. Get my Mindset Monday motivational emails. These are where we're going to work through these things. And all the information that you need is right there. It's the fact that you need to do it. If you want to do it quicker, if you want the accountability, you want to guarantee it's going to happen, that's when you jump in the program. I'm going to be giving all that information to everybody, so take advantage of it.
Yes, please hang out with us and get inspired. If now isn't the time, it will be. It will be. So hang out and learn all the things, because it's just amazing. It's what you've built is incredible. I'm so excited to be hanging out with you and doing this and just kind of be a part of this journey. So thank you for this. Thank you for the group and everything that you're doing. It's amazing. And I'm so excited for you.
Tyler, again, thank you so much always for all of the love and the participating in this whole thing. I mean, I think it's so amazing that, I found out, everybody, that Tyler is on vacation. She is so anxious to give and so loves giving to us and sharing her passion that she forgot she was on vacation. When I asked her, she said yes immediately. So much love and gratitude your way. However we can support. I definitely want to be able to do that. And I think one of the things I'm going to put out there, because we're going to make a decision. I know it's the right decision. When we get done here, I want to get on the phone to see how I can support your grant program, because I've been privileged and I work hard because I want to make this shift happen. And when I applied these principles, I had an opportunity to start training other providers in a way I didn't know was possible. And when that happened, and it was because I just put out what I wanted to really do. And that brought some financial abundance that I can now share. And I would love to do that. So let's make that happen, because your program is incredible. So
Thank you so much. Thank you. I love that. And I love you. And I love all of you who are watching, and just have a really great rest of your Sunday.
Absolutely. Everybody, thank you so much for joining Tyler and I, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. Don't miss out on a single thing. Subscribe to our podcast and then join me at tommoorcroft.com.